Mr.
Bond.
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 Bond. James Bond.
I still love that we've got our own theme tune. It makes me smile every time I see that. You know, I know it's not our theme tune actually. I'm appropriating a theme tune from Bond. Hello, welcome to the next episode of the Ultimate Bondcast, episode 4. Wow. You are joined by Chris and Mike. How are you, Mike? Are you all right?
Oh, mate, I'm very, very well. Lovely to be back with you all, and what an exciting time to be a Bond fan as well. That's the thing right now, isn't it?
It continues to be an incredibly exciting time to be a Bond fan. And I mean, I think this is kind of why we're talking today. But in general, the very fact that there has been resolution between Amazon and, the Broccoli's and the Wilsons, Eon in general, means that stuff will move forward. You know, whether it's the stuff you want, I don't know. But something's going to happen, I feel like. And that's kind of why we're here today.
Yeah, we didn't want to get caught short, I think, Chris. That's because it's. I think an announcement relatively is imminent. I believe.
I think you might be right, and if you aren't already aware, you might have seen by our thumbnail. We think that the announcement for the next James Bond is probably imminent, and we're going to talk about that today. Maybe have a look at some of the main contenders for it, some recent developments that might change the order of who you might put as the number one candidate for Bond.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to talk a little bit about Bond news this week. Mike, what is happening in the world of Bond news?
Oh my God, it's actually had quite a lot kicking off this week, mate, to be honest with you. So let me just bring up, and I want to just specify, so I'm not done on future copyrights. Thank you to MI6HQ for releasing this information. So in the news, a lot going on. First things first is linked to our Amazon takeover, Chris. So we know it's happened. It's completed, of course.
Yeah.
Apparently, they have not only just paid the Broccoli's off $1 billion or £1 billion to have it in their possession.
Yeah.
They've now chucked £250 million at the production, and they have told everybody publicly that Bond 26 will be out in 2027. So we know that they are fast tracking it. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But I think it's encouraging to hear that they want to recoup their losses, I suppose. It's a lot of money, but we know that when Bond hits the cinema, they're always big earners. So it would be entirely possible to recruit 1.2 billion very quickly, I think. So.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I don't actually think that 2027 is too scary a timescale either. I think if it's a November release, as Bond films have been in the previously, that's 2.5 years away. If they get into production by Christmas, by January, by February, they're still going to have loads of time to get this film ready. So I think 2027, dependent on the time of year, is very reasonable as a timescale. So I'm not worried about that. I think from what you've said, that level of money worries me. I think that Bond will make a lot of money, but we've only had one Bond that's ever hit $1 billion. I think it's going to take them quite a while to recoup that level of finance. I do feel that they'll probably push Bond more generally on Amazon in the future, and I think that's probably, they're seeing it as a way of trying to get more Prime Video members, I would think. But I don't have any issues with that.
There's an argument there, though, Chris, because are they chucking $250 million at the movie or $250 million at the Bond project? We mentioned potential spin-offs and stuff, so
yeah, very true.
You don't. There's a lot of things that they could do with it, really. But what they have done, though, is they've apparently two, and I love how this has been phrased in the article. Two heavyweights in cinema are under discussions with Amazon to take over the new production roles. And they say it like all the heavyweights, as in we all know who they are, but we don't. So first person, it's a duo, is Amy Pascal. She formerly worked with Eon.
Do you not know who Amy Pascal is?
Would you believe it, Chris?
She produced the most recent Sony Spider-Man movies. She was producer.
No. That's interesting because it does say MGM and Sony, so yes, that would make sense.
Yeah,
She was also involved heavily between Casino Royale and Spectre. She didn't do No Time to Die, but she was heavily involved with that.
Okay, so there's a history there from a Bond perspective. I know that like Kevin Feige had some real issues working with Amy Pascal.
With those guys involved, there's some good movies there in the Bond calendar. I'm actually not worried about her being a lead producer on the on the films. And our second guy is somebody called David Heyman. So he will collaborate with Amy, and he was responsible for all 8 installments of the Harry Potter movie, and
there you
3 of the Fantastic Beasts movies.
Well, I mean, not household names, but definitely sound like heavyweights to me.
Possibilities I think are very, very good, to be honest with you, Chris. But there's also been, so while we've been talking about the subject of potential Bond actors, I didn't know this. It's one that's off the radar a little bit. But did you know Michael Fassbender recently conducted an interview, and he was also touted to be Bond at the same time when Daniel Craig was auditioning? And it's popped up on an article. Yeah, he was very much in the running, but he also, believe it or not, he's the one that told the producers, this is just what I'm just reading, he's the one that told the producers, I'm not for the role, but I think Daniel Craig is. So, big news.
It's funny that. Michael Fassbender, I don't think I realised that Michael Fassbender was in the contention for it the last time, but I do remember very much thinking of Michael Fassbender as a future Bond 5, 6, 7 years ago, probably before, after Spectre, when we thought that might be Daniel Craig's last outing. I was very heavily on the Michael Fassbender bandwagon. I think the time's probably passed now. And I totally get that.
I mean, 20 years ago, don't forget 2004, 2005, people were auditioning for that. So, yeah, absolutely. But the fact is, he's the one that makes claim that he told them to go with Daniel Craig. So, take that as it's well.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome, Chris.
No, I didn't mean you. I meant Fassbender. But also, thank you to you. If you had anything to do with Daniel Craig's hiring, then thank you so much.
Yeah, when I was 16, they heavily approached me and asked me what did he want me to do, what did they suggest I do as a role, and I went, Daniel Craig's your man.
Well, I mean, it's a cinema production company in the early 2000s approaching a 16-year-old. I wouldn't have put it past them.
Whoa, we're going a little bit dark there, Chris. Positive news for you. 2 days ago, which would have been the 21st of March, was Timothy Dalton's 78th. Oh, hang on, let me just confirm. No, oh my God, 79th birthday.
Wow,
incredible!
I can't believe he's 79.
He doesn't look 79, does he? I think he looks incredibly good for his age. And
I think so too.
As you've speculated the other week, my favourite Bond out of all of them. So, happy birthday, Timothy Dalton. We hope you had a good one. And I also, this is quite funny. So, the guys at Really 007, Chris, I posted on their fan post about his birthday, saying happy birthday, Timothy Dalton. And somebody called Timothy Dalton liked my comment. I'm not sure it is Timothy Dalton. But
wow. If it is, that's amazing.
But I found that quite amusing at the fact that somebody took the time from there. So that is the end of the news for this particular session.
Excellent. So, excellent. Well, I mean, the news is all positive at the moment, surely.
I think so. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's I don't know about how you feel. There's a buzz going on right now. There's like anything could happen. We want to know, and nothing would surprise us at this stage, I don't think.
I think you're right. And I think that leads us into the main topic. So there really is a buzz at the minute. And I think that the buzz will only get stronger once a new Bond is announced, because I think that's the first step in the production of a movie. It will be getting that Bond actor, getting that Bond director, Martin Campbell, please. And then, the sort of moving of the pre-production and us seeing photos and all that sort of thing. I think that, getting the new Bond is the first step, and that's why we're here today. There have been there's been so much talk recently about who the next Bond is. There's always talk about who the next Bond is. And I've seen so many videos, so many articles about it. But I think something that spurred us on was there's been a recent article. And I think the very fact that Amazon has taken creative control throws stuff up in the air. I really do think that
I agree.
Those lists we've seen of the number one, likely candidate can be thrown out effectively. What do you think?
The things that you read where you read something that's a little bit too bizarre. I mean, like throwing a joke out there, like, Selena Gomez is going to be Bond. You go, come on, never going to happen. And, but then you read something that has credibility, and I think, like you said, Amazon taking over means the things that were sort of thrown out previously by the Broccolis and by fandom are probably a lot more potentially likely to do, because Amazon are going to want to make their mark, aren't they? That's the thing. So, I won't steal your thunder because you've been very excited about this article, Chris. So
no, not at all.
I'll let you tout it, and I'll give you my 2 pence worth.
I mean, I am excited about this article, but not specifically for the very fact that it talks about who the next Bond might be. This may or may not be my number one candidate. I don't think that it is, but I just think it shows that they're making real consideration. But I think in general, you all watching might have seen recent, or over the last few months, might have seen that someone like Aaron Taylor-Johnson is widely tipped to be the next James Bond. All I think this means is that's no longer the case, or may no longer be the case. So, okay. Sorry, you've got this article. Were you putting it up on screen? I'm
going to put it up on screen, but I'm wondering, what I'm wondering, Chris, is should I put a little title up there before I do the screen share, or should we just roll with it? But I'm happy to screen share it.
I don't mind either way. But basically, the article is effectively saying that despite the fact that Michael G. Wilson had said that Henry Cavill was not to be considered as the next James Bond, there's no chance anyone from that previous final 4 that we saw the leaked audition tapes of would be considered for the next James Bond. It now looks as though all bets are off, and Henry Cavill very much could be considered for the next James Bond. It's not saying
absolutely
he's the number one candidate. It's just saying this now means that he can be considered.
I mean, it's quite an interesting take, because Henry Cavill, if you look at his sort of acting pedigree that goes with who he is and what films he's done, very, very credible. And I mean, I think I've told you that Aaron Taylor-Johnson was my hope for Bond. But if he was announced, he's put down as a frontman, and this was just 2 days ago. So no, sorry, this was today. This was today's news.
We're bringing you today's news on this podcast.
We are using somebody else's webpage to bring you today's news. So I mean, look, the fact is, who's he played before? He's been in Mission Impossible. He's been in Man from Uncle. He's been in, I forget what's the war film called, Chris?
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
That's it. And
like that.
Honest to God, you see him in their movies. If you haven't seen them in movies, just take a minute and watch him. You're going to be sold on it immediately, because he's got the humour, he's got the charisma, he can do the fighting, and he's a very likeable guy. I think I like about Henry Cavill is he doesn't take himself seriously. Do you know what I mean? He's a geek. He's a geek at heart. He plays Warhammer. He's a gamer. He's just such a down-to-earth guy, and I think that's something we can take with a lot of credit there, Chris.
I think you're absolutely right, and he's a guy also that can head up big franchises. So he's been Superman, he's been Geralt in The Witcher, as well as all of those other roles that you've mentioned there. He can do big roles, and I think from my point of view, specifically with regards to Henry Cavill, I think some of the things that I've heard against him are that he's too old now. That he's aging out of the role. So he's 41. So he would be 43 in 2027 if the next James Bond keeps that. And now Daniel Craig was 38. Yes,
he was.
When Casino Royale came out in 2006. So he's 5 years older than Daniel Craig was when he did. So yes, he's slightly older. In this day and age, does that make a great deal of difference? Maybe not, but
No.
perhaps they want to go for somebody with a little bit more longevity. I don't know.
I've got a feeling that, I mean, you've got two avenues, really, haven't you? You either go, obviously, really young, but please avoid the prequel route. Just do a young Bond, but not an inexperienced Bond.
Just make a Bond.
And then you've got the other route to take somebody who, Cavill, for example, everybody really likes, would accept him, and doesn't look his age. Because, frankly, if you think about the production, the way Daniel Craig's movies were done, great actor, started quite young, but with all the breaks in writers' strikes and COVID and everything, his films were delayed. Hypothetically, if the production kept up to the right level, you might have seen a sixth Daniel Craig movie and still be further back than where we are now. That's the way I would look at it. So
I completely agree.
If he's 58, is he 50? No, sorry, he's about 59 now, isn't he, Daniel Craig, if that's the case? He was 38 20 years ago. So
looks good.
The way I look at it, you took 10 years on top of Henry Cavill, 53, okay? And you're keeping 2-3 years ago movies with production kept prompt and punchy. He could do it. He could absolutely do it. So
yeah, I completely agree. If it's 15 years, if it's 3 years, if it's a 3-year cycle, that's a rough gauge. I mean, 2 years might happen, but if it's 3 years, and that's 15 years to do 5 films, so we'd be 57, 58 when when the last film comes out. So it's not that different.
I will say, our lovely friend Lorenzo, his thumbs up. Henry Cavill is my pick to be James Bond. So yeah, mate, Lorenzo, this is your show, really, isn't it? For you, this is your subject. So thank you very much for commenting as always. And yeah, I think truthfully, you're going to find something coming out in next 6 to 8 weeks. I would say that's probably feasible to hear something in the press. What I thought might be good to do, Chris, if you wanted, on the subject of Cavill. Now, I've actually got his James Bond recently unearthed audition tape. Obviously, he's a baby-faced Cavill. He's probably 30. I'm trying to do my math really quickly in my head here. He's probably 29, 28, something around there. But I think it'd be interesting to understand how he rolls. So, should we give it a try? I'm not sure how it's going to pay off, but should we try and we'll screen share it and have a little look how he got on with an audition? It's less than a minute, but it'd be interesting to see how he got on.
Let's do it.
I don't want this to explode on me, Chris. So bear with me.
Better not explode.
Hopefully, right? Is that coming up okay?
Yeah, that's coming up. Yeah,
right,
well
here
done.
We go. So,
well done.
So we're not going to have it dramatically loud, but so
interesting search history you've got there, Mike. But
it's very, very strange when you look at me. I'm so obsessed with Henry Cavill, apparently. But this is him doing a readout from GoldenEye at the cinema. Yes. At the casino where he's talking to Xenia Onatopp. So let's just we'll full screen him and we'll just see how we get on, Chris. So let's have a little look.
I hope your third is where your real talent lies.
One rises to make the change.
Double.
Sweetie. Count.
5. 6. Bank loses.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
The very words I live by.
Quite understated, isn't it?
Words you live by.
The trick.
I don't agree with the hair. I won't lie. The long hair.
Yeah, it doesn't go into the audition for his hair, but yeah, it's quite understated.
It is, yeah, and he's got a nice tone to his voice. I think in this one, it's quite a good way of you can picture him saying Bond, James Bond. I mean, he's going to say it in a minute, but
I like the way he hits the innuendo as well.
It's interesting. There's a confidence here about him, isn't there?
I never learned that trick. Perhaps you'll show me how it's done. Vodka martini shaken not stirred. And you?
The same.
And how do you take it?
Straight up, with a twist. Thank you, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
There we go.
Senior.
I think that was a good delivery.
Yeah, I think it's quite soft. I think there's something about him that's quite softly spoken in the way that he conducted himself there. And I'm sure if they want to go in a different direction, he's an actor. They'll just say, play it a different way. You know, this isn't the way that he's necessarily going to play it if he even got the role. But I have no issue with Henry Cavill taking it. I think that's why I don't put a lot of credence in these sorts of things, because an audition, that's not necessarily how that role is going to be played when they get to the movie. The director and production team is going to have their own vision of what what a character is going to be.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you get a diverse actor, I mean, let's say take Daniel Craig, for example, he could run with a new direction. And I think Cavill is a guy that could also run with a new directive, whichever he gives it. And he might even be involved in production element. He might have his own views and they take that on board.
Maybe. Yeah, he's got very strong views about how his characters are portrayed, hasn't he? So
the only thing I have noticed about this audition tape, Chris, is the fact that the lady that's playing Daniel on the top, one, has no accent, and two, is clearly closer to the microphone than Henry Cavill is.
Terrible. She never got the role. That's awful.
Oh,
no accent.
I mean, Famke Janssen. I mean, how could she get the role over this nameless woman?
Poor production assistant that's just doing her job.
On the top.
Could be Barbara Broccoli. We don't know, do we?
On the top.
Do you know what? Could have been. Actually, could have been. Yeah.
Very good, Mr. Bond. You have been
She's got an accent.
But I used to drop in occasionally, shooting it out.
It's very different now. A land of opportunity.
The Ferrari in every garage.
Not quite. That belongs to a friend.
Tip for your friend. The registration plates for the French new models will begin with letter L. Even the counterfeit ones.
And what rank do you hold with the motor vehicles department, Mr. Bond?
Commander.
Shall we go?
So that was his first run. So he does do a secondary run, Chris. But obviously, in the interest of time, we'll stop that there. But he does a couple of different takes to give it. I will be honest, there wasn't that much diversity between this one and the other one. Hence why there's no reason to really show you the second part. But yeah, what's your opinion of him? Not in what you've seen him in, just that.
I mean, just that. I think I'm glad that Daniel Craig got the role. I think for the direction that Barbara Broccoli was trying to go, he didn't suit that Bond for me. That he, as I said, he felt very softly spoken in that, and maybe didn't have the gravitas and physicality that they were looking for. But I mean, I don't know what they were looking for really. But he doesn't strike me as a similar way to play it that Daniel Craig did.
You got a question? Is this a blessing in disguise that he didn't become Bond then, therefore would be appropriate for a direction now? Maybe.
And how true is that of the entirety of Bond, that Pierce Brosnan was considered when Timothy Dalton got the role, but he was he missed out. He was too young, and then all of a sudden he suits the role when it's him, and the same with Roger Moore, and it happens so often that somebody gets considered for the role and they miss out because they're too young and they don't fit it, and then they grow into that persona later on. So wouldn't it kind of feels it kind of feels like it's written that he should now be Bond. So
are you referring to destiny, Chris? Is that what you're going with?
Yeah, might be referring to fate a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But I think it wouldn't be a bad decision. But
nothing's out the ordinary in this one. That's the thing, Chris. I mean, Cavill's a possibility. We know that for certain. And he seemed like he's somehow slipped into the top bookie odds above Aaron Taylor-Johnson. And we mentioned a couple of weeks ago Josh O'Connor, who was in quite a few sort of like very, very, very low-key projects like The Crown and whatever on Netflix. So there's some known people that we've discussed in the past, but I've found another article, mate. And would you like to know who else is on that list? I absolutely would.
I feel like we need to pull this list apart.
So just for record, this is not, a couple of years old where there was no idea who would take over Daniel Craig at all, or who would take over the role full stop. This is very much within the last 6 weeks old. So it gives us a couple of suggestions of wonderful actors that might play the role. Now, we need to debunk these, Chris, because some might be, no, Fred, that's never going to happen. And some might be, oh my God, how's that never popped up in my head? So,
can't wait.
What we'll do, should we screen share again? Should we do that?
Yeah, let's do it. We're so technically, everything's computer, mate. Everything's computer right now.
Oh, whoa, look at that one. Right, okay. So, here we go. Number 1.
No, move on.
Hang on. I think there's a possibility. I've been thinking about this. There might be some possibility now. I don't mean the official James Bond. I mean a one-off little Brosnan short movie on Amazon might actually be possible.
Yeah, refer to our last podcast. We spoke about this at length. I think you're right. But next James Bond, definitely not. Not
long term. Long term. Okay. James Norton. Now I know his face, but the things that he's mentioned here. Happy Valley, War and Peace. I've never seen them. I'm not going to lie. So I don't.
No,
really
I've not seen him either.
him.
He looks the part in a suit. Cool.
I think you're 40% way there if you can carry yourself in a tux, can't you? Really, and look good doing so. But I mean, look, not somebody. I haven't really got an opinion on him, so I'm not going to say he's terrible or he's perfect, but. He's a younger actor. He's the same age that Daniel Craig was when he took over.
Well, there you go.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, my number 1 guy. This is who I would tip as Bond, and I think there's still a possibility he could be. So
I think you're absolutely right. I think he's still well up there.
He's probably in the top 3 with Cavill. Do you reckon?
Oh, definitely. I still think he's the most likely. He's 34 as well.
He was very young. He's very good at his acting. You know, if you look again at his pedigree, he's just done on his own, obviously, Craven the Hunter. Been in Marvel with the Avengers in Age of Ultron. A stack of things to kick ass. He can do action. And he's got longevity. So I think I could see this guy being Bond. Again, he'll have to maybe drop the haircut just a little bit and go a bit shorter. Because I don't think
you don't want a Bond with a man bun then.
I can't see it happening. Can you?
No, definitely not.
So Aaron Taylor Johnson. I mean, yeah, there's no debunking that. That is a real possibility. Going further down, right, Harris Dickinson. Now, he's mentioned from The Kingsman and Baby Girl, but he's probably a side B star. He's probably not Aaron Tegety or anything, of course, from The Kingsman, but I don't know.
Taron Egerton.
Sorry, apologies. That was his character, Eggsy, wasn't it? Sorry.
Eggsy, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the guy well enough. He's probably very low profile, so I don't know if there's a lot of room to really negotiate on him, to be honest. But he's 28.
He's really young.
He's very young. I mean, that'd be Bond on work experience, wouldn't it?
I think that's a bit young for me.
Yeah, I don't know if I could roll with that one. Now, this is an interesting one. I didn't know how I felt about this one. Theo Jones. I will say, just sorry, I know that you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the talking at the minute. So Theo James is actually on my list of choices. I thought he was excellent in The Gentleman recently. I definitely think he could pull it off, being in that role. He's done quite a lot recently of high profile stuff, and I think he'd fit in quite well. He wouldn't be my top pick, but he's in there. My worry when I heard about Theo, is it James or Jones? James, sorry, when I first heard him, was I'm not being funny. The first thing I'd seen him in was The Inbetweeners.
Yeah,
in the movie.
He was in The Inbetweeners movie.
I was thinking, really?
Yeah.
But I agree. The Gentleman series, very good. He's very good in that.
He's very good in that.
And he's changed me. I mean, bear in mind, when the In-Betweeners movie was out, he was obviously very young. You can't really compare that to somebody that's maybe refined over 10 or 15 years, you know, so...
No, definitely not. I thought he was good in the In-Betweeners movie as well.
there's quite a bit. I just didn't see him in a Bond like role. He was playing more a henchman villainy type thing when he was in it. That's the thing. But it's again, I'm gonna put it down as a fairly decent maybe. Oh, Josh O'Connor. We partly discussed him. Now you can see him, Chris. What do you think?
I feel really bad. I mean, he looks fine. He's got ears for days. He'd be able to hear the enemies coming a mile off. But,
evidently, he was Prince Charles. You can tell why, can't you?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure he'd be great. He seems like a nice lad.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, look, he's very, very. He's 34 actually. I thought he was very young. He's not. He's 34, so he's slightly younger than Daniel Craig's takeover time. But I don't know. I mean, never say never. Truthfully, you never know. Right. That. These are what's known as the outside picks. So these are ones that are just
picks myself.
I mean, come on. I mean, in fact, before we do, Chris, we'll go back to the share in a minute, shall we? First of all, let's do your outside picks. So who have you got?
I mean, I've got a few. I'm actually there's some names on that list or not on that list that I'm really surprised. I think that if I still would like to see people consider Tom Hiddleston for the role. I think he's probably slightly older. I think he's 43 now. I think he'd be able to bring a real suave, sophisticated Bond character. But I can understand if he's slightly old. I'm surprised on that list that is it Regé Jean Page is not on that list because he seems to be getting talked about a lot. The chap from Bridgerton. I think if I feel like Amazon might make a decision to do something bold and different with Bond, and I think this actor gives them the opportunity to make a statement without changing the race of the character for the purposes of it being a stunt casting. I think he would fit the role really well, but I also think it'd be Amazon saying, do you know what, this is us taking this in a very bold direction, and we're doing something different. I mean, it's interesting. Pick, but
Rage is on there, by the way. He's on the the page there, and I agree. He's been. It's a weird one, really, because he's sort of popped out of the unknown, and nobody's really seen him in a lot, other than he's been in a few TV adverts. He's been in BBC Waterloo Road as a teacher, but nothing that you would say, oh, I recognise that guy, he did X, Y, and Z. But I can honestly say, I mean this, apart from Layer Cake, I didn't know Daniel Craig before he took over. Not really.
No, I don't. Yeah, exactly that. And I think sometimes it's probably better for Bond to not be a huge household name, because then you can really believe that the character is Bond. That's probably why a lot of the Bond actors have always felt typecast in that role, because that's who they're known as. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Amazon might decide that that's too risky a casting, and that they get pushback from elements of the audience who aren't happy about that. My outside pick is a chap called Jack Loudon, and for any
I recognise that name.
Any fans of Slow Horses on Apple TV, he already plays a spy. I think he would be perfect for the role. He's Scottish. He looks the part. He would be my dark horse pick for Bond.
That'd be interesting. I mean, I think you're right. Unknown or minor actors, they're not actually a worrying choice, because you don't actually go into them with any sort of premeditation about, oh, they can't do this or they can do that. You're actually quite surprised. That's the thing. I mean, when Pierce Brosnan took over, now I was very, very young, but I'm looking back at the information that was out at the press at that time of that year, and obviously he'd done a lot of TV stuff for Remington Steele, and he was so spotlighted at that point, and the public were calling out for Pierce to be James Bond. So he was like an icon actor that got the dream job. But then your next actor, Daniel, barely known, and turned out to be the one that nobody wanted to leave. So
yeah,
is that fair? I don't think it matters if you don't have an acting pedigree, but it also helps if you have. But it does leave you open to judgment. Oh, Chris, if we lost you, have you dipped on us?
Oh, I don't know
think
what
I-
happened. I don't know what
Oh, he's
happened.
back. Oh,
Was it
I
me
just
that
thought
went? I couldn't tell if it was me or
froze,
you.
mate.
Had I? Oh God!
I was gonna-
It must have been
I
a
was
horrible
about-
moment as well.
Mate, I was about to do this, but clearly you were. Yeah, thankfully you were okay. But no,
I'm all right. So,
well,
all I was going to say on your point of
Hmm.
them being an unknown actor is that I actually maybe that's something that goes against Aaron Taylor Johnson and Henry Cavill, and maybe we should be thinking about it more in terms of, can I invest more in somebody as James Bond if I know them from less other stuff? Do you know what I mean? And
I
maybe
agree
someone
with
who's
that.
done a bit of TV is better for the role than Henry Cavill and Aaron Taylor Johnson.
yeah, and I suppose if you look at it from a producer's, director's point of view, they've got like a bit of a mold of clay, haven't they? They can change that as much as they want to get it to where to where they want him to be for their interpretation. So I think maybe that probably is a good thing.
Maybe. Do you know what else?
I do
They'd be
think
cheaper.
it's unlikely. Oh God, yeah. Can you imagine the price tag? So I mean,
It'd be a lot cheaper.
Right, here's an interesting thing. Let's
Go on.
find out how much did all the Bond actors get paid. Right, so there's only 6, of course. There's not a massive amount in there, but it'd be interesting to know what they got paid when they took over the role, and we need to vary it with the time that the movies were made. So obviously inflation and all that sort of stuff that takes into consideration there, but also the known actor. How much were they paid against the unknown actor? So let me just bring it up, and I'm going to tell you. This will
Go
be
for it. I
interesting.
can't wait to hear.
Right, here we go. So, I've got the information just coming up, and here we go. Right, this is really intriguing. So, should we go chronologically? Is that the best way of doing it?
Yeah, you got the info. You go for it.
Okay, right. So, number 1, Mr. Connery. Now, we discussed this back in our Dr. No movie review the other week, and he was only paid 100 grand in dollars back in the day. That's how much he was paid for that one movie. However, his fame rocketed, and due to that, he was earning some seriously big money by the end of it. So,
Oh, I can imagine.
Connery, when he finished his reign as Bond, do you know how much he earned? It was over 6.6 million.
What,
And
for Diamonds Are
that's
Forever?
For all of them.
Oh, for all of them, right.
All of them. So by the time he'd reigned the end of Bond and he moved on to other things in the 70s. So, I mean, that wasn't a lot of time, was it? It was only really, 1962 to 71. That was 9 years and he made 6.6 million
Oh,
40,
I bet
50
Pierce
years
Brosnan
ago.
was making that per movie.
Oh, yeah. I would say that because he was obviously tipped on that basis, wasn't he? So that's Connery. Let me just bring up the slightly poorer relation of the Bond family.
Was
Sure.
George Lazenby not making hundreds of millions of dollars for that movie?
Would
I'm
you
shocked.
believe it? No, he didn't, mate.
That's mad.
He didn't do too bad for the time. So Connery made 100 grand on his first movie. George Lazenby made $80,500 for his
Jeez, I
first
hope he got to
movie.
keep his suit.
Well, I think there was a speculation that suit belonged to the other guy, so he had
That's
to hand
true.
it back.
That's true.
Roger Moore, the longest-serving Bond, as we know, very charming. He took over 24.3 million
What, for his 7 films?
in his 7 films. Yeah, so this is total longevity for
Wowzers.
that one. So
Good for
again,
him.
there's a lot of things to consider here over that time. So Timothy Dalton was reluctantly he only did 2 films, 8
million?
million.
Oh,
8
wow.
million?
Was it really 8 million?
You were right.
Nice.
Brosnan, I know Brosnan's your favourite. How much do you think Pierce Brosnan made over his longevity?
25, 30 million.
You could nearly double your first answer there. 41.1 million.
Excellent. Well done, Pierce.
So clearly
Worth
a good
every
payday
penny.
for that guy. That guy. But I mean, this is the really interesting news. Daniel Craig. This is the difference. So Pierce Brosnan made 41 million, and it does break it down here. So to give you an idea, the bulk of it, by the looks of it, came from Die Another Day.
I'd say,
believe it or not.
So I think Daniel Craig 80 million.
You are pretty much bang on.
Really?
Total spend for Daniel Craig was 85.4 million.
I bet they paid through their teeth for No Time to Die. I bet he made 30 million for that one movie.
Well, right. This is interesting. Casino Royale, 7 million. Quantum of Solace, 20 million. Skyfall, 20 million. Spectre, 25 million. And he made another... he made 15 million for No Time to Die. He paid less.
Oh, did he? Wow.
Okay, so that's surprising. That is surprising. But still, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money buying in. But the variation between known and unknown, spend and not spend, that's quite wide.
I mean, so in wrapping this up, are there any other names that you would want to be considered for Bond that we've not yet discussed?
Yeah, there is actually. So one actor that really tipped to my fancy was somebody called Richard Madden. Now, Richard Madden was in Game of Thrones, and more importantly for me, he was in The Bodyguard, the BBC Bodyguard.
He was in The Bodyguard. That's a really good show.
His acting range is so varied. He's also very, very young. Totally worthy. And he is on the countdown, relatively far down. He's sort of about 12 paces down, but he's not out the question. I wouldn't put him into a top 3, if I'm being honest, reluctantly, but he would be somebody that I think they could possibly cast as a not particularly known actor and just go, right, rocket him into the spotlight. And people wouldn't see it coming. They'd go, wow, okay, but I'm on board. I'm okay with that.
I think what we've got to remember is that all these lists that people have done and that were done for odds and for bookies pretty much be thrown out the window now. Amazon will make their own decisions, and that could be Richard Madden. It could be Aaron Taylor Johnson. It could be whoever. It could be Pierce Brosnan. I think it just all depends where they want to go with it.
One thing we ought to do, Chris, at this point, I think look, bear in mind, we have to go quiet. This is a potentially big moment for us to do this, okay? We need to decide who are we thinking? Are we thinking Taylor Johnson? Or are we thinking, I forgot your guy's name, was it Page? Rage?
Jack Bowden. Regé Jean Page.
Right. So, if you had to put your heart on it, forget any head, forget any logic, forget any money, who's your guy? Who are you hiring?
I'm hiring Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Wow.
Just for the age thing. I think Henry Cavill's got a good relationship with Amazon, but I think Henry Cavill's too big a name. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to totally go with the same there. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson is my Bond. I think he will be Bond when it comes out, and I think there'll be a lot of contributing factors as to why he's Bond. So for me, I think Percy, Chris, we're both going to do the finger. You're hired.
You're hired. Yeah,
You're hired.
You're hired. But I think like if I could choose anybody, I really would consider Jack Lowden. I think he's awesome. I'm going to stop talking about him now, though. I'm sounding a bit obsessed.
You are.
Watch Slow Horses. It's the best show on TV.
It's gone from being a bit awkward to like, okay, Chris might actually have Jack Lowden on his screensaver on his computer and on his phone, and.
So, I feel like we've got to the bottom of that. We've cast the new James Bond. I'm pretty sure that Amazon are watching and taking notes. So, Amazon happy.
Jeffrey,
I'm glad we did it for you.
Watch our decision and implement it, please. We really need you to do that.
Absolutely. So, I think that's us for today. Mike, before we go, is there anything that you would like to share or plug?
Yeah, it's much the same, but just to pass on my thanks to the constant growth on our both YouTube and Facebook channel, because I think I'm still overwhelmed that we only started in January and we're not even at the end of March. And the sort of contact from the guys in the Bond community is massive. I'm really, really chuffed with people talking to us, sharing us, commenting on us, people from all over the world. So I think my absolute thanks to everybody that is subscribing, following, liking, and commenting, because you are making our community grow. And it's the reason we're here. It's not for us to just have a chat. It's for us to have a chat with you. And we just echo those voices. But there's a lot of things we've got planned that are going to come this year. There's a lot of interesting ideas. Gaming, more reviews. We've got a special Bond event in October, which we will be doing a vlog to. There is a lot of cool stuff. So this place,
our shot-for-shot remake of The Spy Who Loved Me as well. I'm looking forward to that.
The green screen, yes.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I think that's going to be incredible.
That could be something else. And I think, speculating, Chris, there might even be a figure review, if I'm not mistaken. If there's anything that you would like to plug.
Oh, I mean, there might be in the future. We'll have to wait and see. I only have a finite budget, and my finite budget is about 20 quid a month, I think. But yeah, I want to echo Mike, and all the stuff that's been going on the growth on the channel has been fantastic. To all the people that are tuning in, we love to have you here. Please get involved. Let us know what the topics you'd like us to talk about. We would definitely love to dive into those. Just really enjoying talking about Bond at the minute. You can catch me on social media. On YouTube and on Instagram at GeekFigureFan. So
there was some pretty good stuff on there, mate. By the way, well done your videos.
Mate, thank you.
A little turnstile going around. I love that. I think it's got a
little turnstile. Does a lot of heavy lifting so that I don't have to. So thank you for that. But yeah, I think we've solved it. Great. We've cast the next James Bond. Can't wait to see Aaron Taylor Johnson in the role. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Lorenzo for commenting. It's been really great to have you watching. And I think we will sign off there. You've been watching the Bondcast,
the ultimate Bondcast. We're getting slicker.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.